Hello again everyone, welcome back to Fairview. It's August 2022 and this month we have a special edition of my updates because it's now 4 years since I started building Fairview, and it's almost exactly 2 years since I uploaded my first video recording my projects and my progress as time went by. So we're going to do a special edition video today where we just look back over the history of the layout to date, review the progress that I've made over the last 12 months, and then have a look at one or two areas for future developments in the coming year. All right, let's make a start then by having a look at the track plan first of all. Not very much has changed since last year. The actual track itself remains exactly the same, but I've updated the plan just to reflect some changes in terms of scenery and buildings. So Fairview is my HO scale model railroad set in the Rocky Mountains of the United States and Canada. The plan here is the main deck, which depicts Colorado, an area sort of northwest of Denver, and I have a separate standalone DC only second deck which depicts the Canadian Rockies. The railway room itself is an insulated pod within my garage and gives me a space of 14 feet long by 8 foot wide to work with. Bench work I've set at a nominal datum point of 38 inches off the ground. That probably sounds a little bit short to some of you modelling over in the USA, where bench work I know tends to be somewhat higher, but I'm quite a short guy. I'm only 5'6", so this is quite comfortable for me when I'm working on it, or if I'm just sitting and enjoying trains running past. So one whole side of the layout, the grey area here on the plan, represents my staging yard with storage tracks beneath, and this kind of represents the whole of the rest of the world. Trains coming in on the left there are understood to have come from Denver and run through Fairview, and then when they exit off the right hand side of the layout back onto the staging yard, essentially they're continuing up the Moffett Tunnel subdivision and into the Rocky Mountains. The modelled portion is then divided into 3 distinct areas representing sort of suburbs and so on of the town. First of all, coming into a residential area called Stanton. Not much here apart from as you curve round the top of the track plan there, the first industry on the layout coming in from Denver, which is Rocky Mountain Manufacturing. And then the tracks follow round and into the main area of Fairview itself, where we have a small yard with a siding, an extra track for switching cars, preparing inbound and outbound loads and so on, and a couple more industries. There's also a small yard office. The third and final area of the layout is called Fairview Heights. No industries here, just a few buildings and a motel and slightly more open countryside. The tracks then pass underneath a highway overpass before leaving the layout proper and entering back into the fiddle yard. All right, why don't we jump back into the garage and see what things look like on the ground. So trains enter the layout proper here in the part of town which I have dubbed Stanton, coming past a residential area. The tracks curve round, behind just a little sort of shopping mall area with a Circle K gas station and convenience store. There's a Jiffy Lube in the background there somewhere, where citizens can quickly grab a bite to eat. And then a couple of other small little businesses tucked away in the corner there, a chiropractic and a small independent brewers. But behind all that, as the tracks continue to curve around, we also have the first industry on the layout. This area was completed a couple of years ago now, so nothing really has changed this year apart from adding a few more figures, but that's Rocky Mountain Manufacturing. And then as the tracks come round again into Fairview itself, we begin to see the main part of the layout. We've got the ADM corn syrup transload facility there. Then just a team track and the Stevens scrapyard before reaching Fairview and the main siding in town. Small little yard. Those of you who've been watching now for a couple of years, this will all be fairly familiar. Not much has happened here again. As we come along, we get to the small yard office. And it's from here that we see the biggest changes. Just updates in just the last couple of months have shown me completing work on the roadways around here, the grade crossing. Most recently, I have acquired some new flashers and the barriers that stop cars from driving across. And then right in this corner, we've got the book bunker, some sort of more open space before we get to another little estate which consists of the Deli King sandwich takeaway place, and then in the background there a new office block. So if we just continue round following the curve of the main line, up here in Fairview Heights we have a Motel 6 complex. So perfect if you want to come and spend a few days in the town doing some rail fanning. Come and stay in their cheap but comfortable rooms. And then just finally, as we come towards the end of the scenic part of the layout, this is where Fairview Heights lives up to its name, with just a hint of the higher ground which you'll find to the north of the town. Running through this part is the interstate highway, busy with traffic today, and just beneath there we've got the electrical cabinet for the lead into the yard. There's some UP workers doing some track maintenance or something here, and tucked away underneath the highway overpass, there is a small camp for homeless people, I guess. Not much room for huge, expansive track plans with complex operational possibilities, but it works for me, for now at least. I've used this layout very much as an opportunity to learn lessons, make mistakes, and just have some fun building my first ever HO scale North American model railroad. The biggest development this year has been the retrofitting of some hidden staging. This is a space just a few inches below the main layout. Look, if I just come back up, there we go, with a ridiculously steep 8% grade down to an area which I've managed to squeeze in underneath, and I now have a total of 4 long stub-ended spurs, which allows me to keep some of my longer trains permanently down there. I've still got to tweak things. It's been horrible every step of the way, I have to say. If ever it reinforced the message that you should plan your layout well in advance of actually building it, this is the most obvious example of it, because I'm now having to creep into these little gaps to improve the electrical feed, to add, can you just see one there? I've started using, can I indicate? Look, just back there, that's going to mess the focus up. Those are Pico track isolators, electrical switches that you just clip onto the track with a gap in the track there to switch off the electrical feed. And all of it's just being really, really difficult to do, and it serves me right. Lesson really learned for if and when I get to build a new layout. But there you go, it does at least allow me to keep various trains down here and then to bring them up onto the layout when a service needs to run through Fairview. Now, in my mind, when I first started work here in the garage, I had set myself a goal of phase 1 completion, which would be to have all track work in place, fully wired up, ballasted, and basic ground cover and buildings in place across the whole of the main level. And what that means is that at this point in August 2022, I am declaring phase 1 finished. I'm really pleased that I've got to this stage. Lots of things now to come back and do. Finishing off backdrops. There's areas where the ballasting needs tidying up. I've got to put in or finally fix down lots more greenery. But that main level, the one I've been focusing on for these last couple of years, that is now finished. And what this means most importantly is that I'm really starting to focus now on operations on the layout. I've devised a very simple sequential daily operating schedule, and I use cards in the garage itself to tell me what services are due to run through, and this just gives me a bit of structure to my operating sessions. But sometimes I quite like to just have one unit train slowly pootling around the layout under its own steam, as it were, while I also switch out some cars. So here, for instance, we have a westbound BNSF coal train led by number 3833, which has been pulled into the siding at Fairview to wait for a Union Pacific manifest train, which is going to come through town in the opposite direction. And once unit trains have completed their circuit of the layout, I can tuck them away down in the lower staging once again. Now the main line's clear. The local switcher, number 2018, can get on with switching some cars. Switching complete, it'll run these cars into Denver. So we're scheduled now to have the Union Pacific Rocky Local trip, but owing to a shortage of motive power in North Yard, the Fairview local switcher is going to deputise today. The conductor quickly stops at the Fairview yard just in case there are any extra instructions for him today. And once the train arrives at the Rocky Spur, it can commence switching operations here. Outbound cars are placed on the departure track. And once the inbound cars have been dropped off, the loco can couple onto the outbound cars and head back towards the main line. Now at the moment, space constraints mean that I don't have any run-round facilities here at Rocky yet. So at the moment, we have to do a fairly lengthy shove move all the way back to Fairview Yard before the loco can run round its train. But soon everything's ready for the return to Denver North Yard. So I hope you enjoyed that little insight into the way I operate my layout. But I want to just finish today's film by taking a look ahead at the coming months and some of my plans and priorities for developing Fairview further. First of all, I'd like to turn my attention to the upper deck, saying that the main deck is now sort of phase one complete. I need to do something similar with this upper deck. Some areas are looking really nice. The scenery's finished. I put up the backdrops this year, which make it all look really quite splendid. But there are other parts of the upper deck which are a real mess. I've even sort of taken away bits of track to use elsewhere, and in a couple of places really it's just become a bit of a dumping ground for spare cars and things. So all that's got to be looked at, sorted out, track put down properly, and at least scenic to a basic level. Another area to look at next year is all the stuff to do with electronics, something I don't really like very much, but I want to start working out how all these different super duper gadgets work to make signals function, level crossing flashes and so on and so forth. Watch this space though, I think that could be quite painful. But the biggest area of development really is going to be now expanding the areas where these new operations are taking place. I've already shown you how I've begun to incorporate the rocky spur. Got to do some more work on that yet. But having looked at Lance Mindheim's work, amongst other things, I have now started building the baseboards and trying out some track plans for the industrial area, which I talked about in my last video. None of the track here at the moment is actually fixed. I've got to think about this and just play around with some cars, pushing things around, doing some buildings, but watch this space for further developments in this area over the next few months. But most important of all, really, is just to enjoy my model railroad. I've come a long way in the last 4 years, from a test module in my living room to building out the garage space, and now to having trains running around what I consider to be an increasingly realistic and believable little slice of North America. It gives me great pleasure, I have to say. There's nothing better after a stressful day at work than coming home and just switching some cars around. So I hope you've enjoyed my layout overview and tour for 2022. Thanks as always for watching, and if you're new to my videos, please do subscribe, click the like button, send me comments or questions if you've got anything you want to share with me. I promise you I'll try and get back to you as quickly as I can. But above all else, enjoy your model railroading, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.